that's sort of like something that different people that I've spoken to have debated. And I think this is what happens when it gets more complicated. For me, I think the climax happens when he says, I gotta get my train. Like, you know, when he breaks the pattern for me, like when he's sort of like moving the story. Because the climax is, excuse me, climax is often when things suddenly move in a completely different direction. And things sort of shift gears at that point. Because everything up to that point has been almost the same. You know, and they're just keep getting, the last one is a little bit more dramatic because they've thrown them out of the bar. And the other two, at least they've got a drink. But when he says, I have to get my train. And it's interesting because it's not your classic climax, right? It's not like, and then there was an explosion, you know, or then, you know, and then we were rescued from the kidnappers. It's something, that's what sort of I love about this story, is that's what's happening is completely internal and emotional. And when Charlie says, I have to get my train, you know that the change has happened in him, which is he no longer loves his father, like he no longer admires this man. We edit quite vigorously at one story, and a lot of that has to do with the format of the magazine. I did bring copies for everybody here. They're in the back of the room by the wine, so please take one on your way out if you've never seen the magazine before, or maybe you're a subscriber and there's some, well actually I think they're more recent issues, so. But please only take one, so everybody gets one. But because the format is just an individual short story, it bears the weight, like an enormous weight. And so normally, like, we've all read like stories in the New Yorker that are a little slight. You know? I mean, that's how many times, I mean, I love the New Yorker, I read it every week, but sometimes I'm reading the fiction and I'm like, wait, didn't anything, whoa. And then oftentimes it's because it's an excerpt of a novel or something like that, it doesn't feel contained. So I felt really strongly when creating this magazine that I wanted a story as much as possible that I could do to sort of really stand alone and be extremely, sort of give a satisfying, all 5, you know, sort of points, and give a satisfying read to someone. So we end up going back and forth quite a lot with some, I mean, again, sometimes like we've got a story which I brought a copy of by Andrea Barrett, and when I got that, it was pretty solid. I didn't really have to do much editing with Andrea Barrett. We did tweak some things, actually. She was totally sweet and open to changing a few things just to sort of make it track a little better. But particularly with you know, some sort of beginning writers, because we do try to publish well-known writers like Andrea Barrett and also first-timers and people sort of just beginning their careers, they usually need a little bit more guidance. And so what we do is usually, what we'll do is take a story on sometimes, because sometimes you know, over the years I've realized that not every writer has the capability of actually taking edits, and that's a process that you learn the more times that you do it. So what I'll do if I see promise in a story is I'll often call a writer up and say, look, we're really excited about this story and these are the things we really enjoy about it. We could not publish it the way it stands right now. Would you be open for doing some revisions with us, and we'll just go back and forth, and if we can both make this story reach a place where we're both happy with it. Like I feel like I can't go in and just tell a writer what to do. It's not my style. So I'll say, like, let's work on this together, see if we can make it reach a point we're both happy with, and then we'll accept it for publication. And almost always the writers say yes. I think that's happened only once that someone said, no, it's perfect the way it is. I'm like, okay, then take it somewhere else. I didn't sort of follow, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. When I heard The Good Thief, I was just really, it really took me along, and that's why it took me about 6 years to write, because I really didn't know how to write a novel. But what I did try to do is write each chapter with an arc, so that it would have a bit of an emotional arc and an ending of resonance at each chapter. Because I was sort of basing that on the way Dickens would write his chapters and serialize them. So I was really sort of, this is a bit of an homage to like Dickens and Stevenson, so that was the only way, it was the only way I could think about writing a novel, because I was too overwhelmed. I was like, but I can write a short story, so I'll just make a lot of short stories and try to put them together. And then when I did think about the overall arc of the book, I realized this is something, you know, thinking about what I wanted the book to be about. And I realized that the book really was about storytelling and sort of this resurrection of the self, a reinvention of the self through storytelling. And that's why I knew the climax had to be story. So it's sort of like I didn't know what was going to happen, and then sort of, you know, towards the end, Ren, who's the character of that, the main character of the novel, tells this enormous story. And that, to me, is the climax of it. And then, again, sort of, I tried really hard to sort of do the same sort of resolution, which was I was thinking, again, about all those things when I sort of, and tried to do a lot of description in the last chapter, which is sort of like the, you know, post-chapter, basically, where they're all in the graveyard having the picnic at the end. So I guess yes and no. I don't know. I don't know if it followed exactly 3 or exactly 5, but I definitely had all these. All these were in there. There was a lot of build-up. It's sort of like, how do you get it crazier when you dig up people who are still alive? I don't know. I had to make it crazier, so I had to keep adding things. Well, see, that's why I said that sometimes, like personally when I write, a lot of times I don't put the structure in until after I have a first draft. So it depends how you write. Some people like to, like John Irving, for example, he outlines everything before he writes his novels. He does everything on little, like 3x5 index cards and creates an entire structure for his novels, and then he writes it. Personally, for me, I don't work that way. I need to sort of figure out what I'm writing first. So I just sort of like, yeah, I'm writing about this woman, and, you know, she really loves monkeys, you know, and then I'm sort of writing, and then I sort of figure it out from there. And then I usually realize when I reach the end what I'm talking about, and then I go back and implement a structure to it. And the fact is even the most obvious, like how obvious is this? Like just by boom, 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 he's just doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's still beautiful. It's still making like something happen by doing it. So even when you think you're being really obvious, you're probably not.